A welcome to Journey Online, wherever you are. Thanks for being with us today as we're scattered together. How about that? We're in the sixth part of a series called Weeds in the Garden, and it is built on a lyric in a song, and if you summarize it, it's just to say that life was intended to have beauty in it. Life was intended to be fulfilling. Life was intended to be life-giving. Unfortunately, over the course of life, weeds tend to grow into our lives. They come from all directions. And as they do, they can snuff out the life from our life. They can snuff out the breath from us. They can take the joy from us. They can take the reason for wanting to live, and it leads to all kinds of difficulties. We're walking through that this morning. Today I want to walk through a couple of those. I want to talk about stress and burnout. Stress is one of these weeds that grows up, and the more of them that grow snuff out the life from within us. They snuff out the joy from waking up and looking forward to, and they create dread. Just like these can grow up all through our lives, stress just seems to accumulate. So I started trying to identify what are the major stressors in life. So I started making a list. Listen, I made a 3-page list. I thought that was too many. And so I'll just read you the first part of my list. See if any of these hit where you might be. They're just all over the map. No logic to them, no priority. Maybe stress for you is just pressure. I feel pressure in my life. I feel pressure from every angle. I feel it in my finances. I feel it physically. I feel it as I'm aging. I feel it at work. I feel it with my kid. Whatever it is, just pressure. That is a massive stressor for all of us. Maybe for you it's because you're facing really big change and you're not ready for it and you don't know what's next, and that drives you crazy. It feels like stress. Or maybe it causes a lack of control. And for all of us, when we feel a lack of control, it makes you grip everything tighter. Stress comes from lack of control. Maybe you're facing big changes in life. Whatever that is, it could be a series of events. It could be a time or a season of your life facing big changes. Maybe you're carrying an extra heavy responsibility now. We all carry some responsibility, but yours may feel like it is overwhelming. It's like you have piled more pounds on my back than I am able to carry. Maybe you're just feeling uncertain about the future. At one time you kind of said that's where life is headed, and now you're just not sure. And for you, that uncertainty can be debilitating. That's what stress does. It snuffs out part of the life. Or maybe you're facing multiple situations at once. This is one that really hits me. I feel like I can face off with one thing. Hey, you got to deal with that. And I can deal with that. But sometimes it feels like I've got a that and another that and another, and they're all hitting me at once. I don't even know where to fight, because if I turn that way, I get hit from that side. Maybe that's where you are. For some of you, you're sitting there going, you're speaking my language right now. Maybe you're feeling the effect of previous experiences in your current experiences. Maybe your past is sneaking into your present, and you feel like, I'm not sure I can ever outrun it. I've made mistakes. I've repented of my wrongs. I've tried to make it right, but it feels like it hangs like a dark cloud over me every day. Or maybe for you, it's just a lack of resources. And you're like, no matter how disciplined I try to be, I just don't have enough. Whatever that resource would be, maybe you're feeling unsupported. You know what I feel right now is alone. I feel like if I just had somebody with me to carry some of this, I could get through it better. That is massive stress for all of us when we feel that way. Maybe you're overwhelmed by the responsibility of parenting. And some of you, you've got a little gaggle of kids at home. And you're trying to balance that, and you're trying to love them well, but you're trying to be healthy in your own. You're trying to find time to do all of the 8 million things that you need to do. And no matter what happens when you talk to somebody else or you watch somebody else's social media or whatever, you feel like they're out doing that. I just barely got pizza rolls on the table. I feel like I am so stressed by parenting, it's overwhelming, and that may be you. And then some of you are single parents, and you're like, well, I don't know why you people would complain. You got 2 of you. I'm trying to do it all by myself, and it just brings stress. Maybe you're facing illness or grief or infertility. Or maybe you're caring for someone who is ill and in late stages of life or in late stages of illness, and the amount of work and time and effort and stress that brings is overwhelming. Maybe you're dealing with divorce, or broken relationships, and you're facing that or you're trying to survive that, and it's overwhelming to you. Maybe you're trying to parent grown children or grown adults that used to be children, and for some of us, that seems to grow in its stressfulness all the time. You don't know how to do it. You don't know what you should do. You want to help. You don't want to overstep, but you don't want to where to do that. And you know what it is? Sometimes it's just stress. It feels like it steals the joy out of life. You wake up and it's what's on your mind. Maybe it's figuring out your education or your future or what to do after your education. Maybe you're facing a combative work situation, and every day you walk in, you feel like it's a war zone. And you're trying to be a good employee, you're trying to make a living and provide and do those things, but honestly, it feels like you can only go to war so many times. Or maybe you just feel like you're dealing with deadlines. You're just drowning in deadlines. When you look at the calendar, you feel like over and over and over again, I've got more things headed my way than I'm going to be able to juggle or deal with. Stressors. Any of those hit you? Any of those? Some of you are like, no, not any one of those hit me. 7 of those hit me. Stress debilitates, stress steals, and when stress is not dealt with, stress leads to burnout. I want to separate those two things, stress and burnout. Matter of fact, I'm going to go really fast through some kind of the clinical end of this. What is the difference in stress and burnout? Let's start with this. Stress is over-engagement. It means I'm just trying to do too many things at once. I'm too involved in too many things. That's what stress, the thing is. When that's left unattended, it ends up where you reach a point where you disengage, where you just say, you know what, forget it. I'm done. That's what burnout begins to look like. It is the starting of that. Stress is overactive emotions. It's when it feels like there's something in you that is kind of rising all of the time. When you reach burnout, sometimes you feel like I once felt that way. I was like, whoa, push that down. And now you feel like I am detached. I just don't care. My emotions are dulled. My happy is not very happy anymore. And you know why? It's probably because my sad or my hurt or my anger have been so bad that I've tried to suppress it. And when I suppress this down here, what I lose is the ability to experience joy. That joy now is like, whatever. Stress and burnout, that's how they go together. Maybe yours would be this. The stress you're facing is you show urgency or hyperactivity. It's like, come on, we got to get this done. If you're feeling that every day you wake up and you're like, if I don't run full speed, I won't arrive. Over the course of time not dealt with, you reach a point where you feel helpless. Or even worse, where you feel hopeless. You reach a point where you say, it doesn't matter, I have tried to go 1,000,000 miles an hour and it didn't get me there. Now I'm not sure it's worth going at all. Stress would say, I have a loss of energy. I feel like I plug myself in at night and charge the batteries. When I get up, it's at 20%. I'm already getting that warning light saying you're below 20%. I feel exhausted. When that's left unattended long enough, loss of motivation or hope. It's when it's not only do I not feel the energy to do it, I don't even feel the desire to get it done. Or the hope that it'll ever be done. See the difference in stress and burnout. Stress would say, I have anxiety issues. It used to feel like everybody deals with anxiety to some level, but it was way down here. I feel like it's right up at the surface all the time now. When things are going on, I feel anxious around them so much. When that's left undealt with, it will steal the life out of your life to the point that you'll begin to feel detached and depressed. It's like somebody's turning my lights down a little bit at a time. Stress would do it this way. Stress would lead to physical damage. Stress would lead you to points where even it's changing your blood pressure, it's changing your biology, it's changing your heart issues grow. Stress is catastrophic for the human body. Left unchecked, it leads to emotional damage. It goes from physical to emotional. Not only physically is it wrecking me, but emotionally it's destroying me. And it gets all the way down to the bottom. It can become life-threatening. Stress, as it grows, can be left like weeds in a garden. It will take over your garden, become life-threatening. And burnout, when it is left when we grow into that, when it's left and not dealt with, you reach a point where you say, I'm not even sure life's worth living. I'm not sure the world wouldn't be a better place without me, and I'm not sure I wouldn't be better off if I weren't in it. You know who that happens to? Human beings with a heartbeat. You don't have to be a high-powered this or an executive that. You know who it happens to? It happens to moms and dads. It happens to people who work in factories and people who work in office buildings. It happens to people who don't have a lot of resources and people who have more than they can spend. It happens to people. It doesn't happen because you're doing a lot of bad things. Honestly, a lot of this happens to people who are filled with good things, just lose their balance, who just lose their capacity to deal with these when they're small and not let them grow into something bigger. Let's do this. If we want to understand burnout, let's just identify it this way, because this is what we're trying to avoid. We can't avoid stress. We can manage stress. Managed stress precludes or does away with burnout. Unmanaged stress always leads to this. Burnout is a debilitating condition that erodes energy, optimism, and effectiveness. Now, what I want to talk about, just on the front end, I promise we'll shift gears out of this clinical mindset in just a second. I want us to look at what burnout looks like. Burnout's like a train on a track. It stops at several stations. It has stages, what we'll call them today. If we can identify in the early stages that this is burnout starting in me, which, by the way, for me, this has been an issue in my life I've had to deal with. It's been an issue, if I don't deal with all the time, that recurs. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm not strong enough. Maybe it's because I'm not smart enough. But maybe it's because it happens to humans, and I'm one of those. Where burnout starts, if we can notice the early stages, and when I'm talking, I'm hopeful that some of you will go, well, that's where I am now. And there's hope in that, in recognizing that it can be changed. We can get off the track and take a better track. We can pull some of those weeds from our garden. Let's look at some stages of burnout. Stage 1 is emotional exhaustion. It's just when you feel like this. It's when somebody talks to you and you really try to listen, but honestly, inside you don't have much listen left. It's when your kids say, hey, I need, and you care, but it's just emotionally you don't have much more to offer. Emotional exhaustion. Some of you are like, hey, I'm on the track to burnout because that's where I'm living every day right now. Stage 2, increased frequency and duration of negative assessment. This is how you see yourself. Everybody at times looks in the mirror and goes, I'm not sure I'm ever going to be good enough. I'm not sure I'm ever going to be able. Everybody deals with some level of why. Why do I have to look like, be like, feel like this? When burnout starts, it increases how often you have that happen, and it increases how long those negative emotions last. They just keep increasing. From an occasional, oh, why would I do that? That's so dumb, to that's who I am. And it lasts longer and longer. Stage 3, a loss of emotional stability, personal discipline, and resiliency. A loss of personal or emotional stability. You know what that means? It means your fuse gets shorter. Your trigger gets touchier. That sometimes it doesn't take much for you to go off. Somebody can just say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing and you are off the handle. I don't have any more cliches I can throw into that one. Every now and then we deal with people and you look at them the wrong way and it's like, wow, where did that come from? And here's the answer. For some people, there's been stress in their life and it has lasted long enough and it is robbing them from the ability to find stability of their emotions. And it happens. It doesn't mean you're a horrible person. It means that you're depleted. And that depletion causes that. Personal discipline. It could be a whole myriad of things. It could be not eating well. Not eating the right things. It could be not resting. It could be I'd stay up too late and get up too late. Or it could be I'm not able to sleep. Or it could be all I want to do is sleep. I can't get up. I'm not awake even when I'm awake. Personal disciplines could come from I'm overspending. The way I'm dealing with my stress is I hit Amazon or whatever your favorite place to spend money. I just keep clicking buy now. And resiliency is just the ability to bounce back. All of us go through times when we get knocked around a little bit. Most of the time you kind of lick your wounds and take a deep breath and bounce back and move on. But you start finding, I don't have the ability to bounce back. I go through a difficult day and it's affecting me the next week the same day. It's affecting me. Last month is affecting this month. Resiliency. It's a growing, the stress of burnout, stages of burnout keep growing and adding to. The next one is it leads to isolation, because when you deal with this all the time, you finally reach a point. When this is me, there were some words that I found myself thinking a lot, saying occasionally. I found myself wanting to say, just shut up and leave me alone. I don't have any more to offer. It's not that I don't care, it's that I don't have any more care with which I can care. I'm empty. Leave me alone. It's when we push others away. It's when we push healthy things away. It's when we pull away from the things that give us life, isolation. 5 is diminished effectiveness. We just quit being able to produce what we used to produce. I'm working just as hard. I just don't feel like I'm accomplishing a whole lot. The last one, the worst one, is we lose or confuse our identity. We lose the who we are. You hear people say, I just lost myself in that. That's what it's talking about. All of a sudden, the you who you were meant to be, the thing that God built you to be, is lost, and it's almost like you've become somebody else. When we deal with somebody who is dealing with burnout, we just go, I don't know what happened to them. I don't know where they went. I know they're in there somewhere. And this is that result, lost or confused identity. Now, there's a lot of clinical stuff. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I can tell you that stuff, and that's from a lot of study and a lot of reading, and there's a lot of truth, and some of that's just from some personal experience. What I can talk to you about is in the Bible, there are example after example of people who face this issue of stress that led to burnout. I want to just give you one of their stories, and it's super familiar as far as at least who it is. The guy's name is Moses. And Moses grew up with a lot of stress. At birth, he went under a lot of stress. He faced it a lot of his life. But at one point, when held captive, all of his people held captive, God appointed him to be the representative. He said, I want you to go to Pharaoh, and I want you to talk to Pharaoh, and I want you to be my mouthpiece. There's no stress in that. That doesn't rob you of any vitality or life-giving things. I just want you to carry the weight of God and all of the people on your shoulders. And Moses was like, here's a plan. No. Here's another thought. Let's not do that. How about you do that? How about you send him or her, or do it yourself, or use a donkey or a rock, or write it in the sky? God said, no, I think it's you. I'm going to send you, and don't underestimate what I can do through you. And so he did, and eventually the people were set free. Begrudgingly set free, and they all left. Let me just put some perspective in this. This wasn't 43 people down around the corner. It wasn't just this little handful of your family leaving. This was a massive number of people. Nobody knows for sure how many. One of the passages we're going to look at one point Moses said there's over 600,000 men who were soldiers. That's what he had to deal with. That doesn't count women, that doesn't count children, it doesn't count the elderly. And so most people, most scholars look at it and say somewhere between 1.5 million and 2.5 million people leave. And guess who's in charge? Well, God's in charge. Guess who he uses? Moses. For some of us who are dealing with our little circle of influence that we're trying to do a good job with, can you imagine this guy who didn't want the job to start with? Now he's representing God, and he wants to do that well, and there's not any pressure in that. And now he also needs to lead 1 million. You know what it would be? We're here in West Tennessee. I don't know, some of you are watching from other places. West Tennessee, if you kind of went from the river to the river, which we would know what that's like around here, that we might call that West Tennessee. That would include Memphis and Jackson and all the counties around us. There's about 1.5 million, 1.3 million to 1.5 million people in 2020. That's what the census would say. So that's how many people, if you took all of us from every little town around, from wherever you're from, all of the little towns, if you take Jackson, if you take Memphis, if we can put them all together without anybody shooting each other, that's the group. Or maybe it could grow and we could include even further on into the south part or the west part of Nashville, all the way across. Can you imagine leading that? Can you imagine the stress? Can you imagine the pressure? Can you imagine the crazy thoughts in his head? And then to make all of it worse, he has to deal with those human beings, they're people. And those people are royal pain. All the time. Just, you know what I figured out? People are that. If you lead people, there's difficulty, there's stress. I'll give you an example. We'll just start here in Numbers chapter 11. It says some weird words I'll start with. It says, then the foreign rabble. That just seems like a rude way to say things. Foreign rabble were just people when the children of Israel left Egypt. They just kind of glommed on. They're takers. They're the people who don't offer anything. They just jump on the bandwagon with anything that happens, and they're suckers. They suck the life out of everything. There's always some of those. Then the foreign rabble who were traveling with the Israelites began to crave the good things of Egypt. So now they're out. They're headed to a land that God has promised, but they're nowhere near it right now, or they don't seem to be. And now they're on their own. And these guys, these people who just left willingly, or like, man, I wish I was back in Egypt. You know, I had better stuff there. Man, we ain't got a grocery store. We don't have a Dollar General. I mean, we're really struggling here. And they started to complain. They craved the good things of Egypt. And the people of Israel began to complain. They began to say, this stinks. I hate this. This isn't what I bargained for. They complained about one thing, and I totally get this. This would be me too. I'd try to keep it to myself, but I'm just telling you, oh, for some meat. God gave them food every day. When he set them free, he led them out, and he said they're all going to get hungry. Can you imagine trying to prepare food for 1.5 million or 2 million people every day? More than once every day, for little babies all the way up to old people and everywhere in between. Can you imagine that job? And he provided manna, and he found a system, and they found ways to cook it. They found ways to prepare it. They found ways to hang on to it through the day till the next day. He provided food for them every day. Some would say that's miraculous. I can't believe God cares for them so much that not only he set them free, but he provided for them food every day. And they were like, yeah, that's fine. That was fine for yesterday, but I want some meat. I want some dead animal cooked right now. I could understand that. That would be my story. All of these guys were craving the carnivore diet, and all they had was the manna diet. And they were frustrated, so they began to complain. Can you imagine leading? On one side, you've got God saying, I am your provision, and I've given you everything you need. And then 1.5 million or 2 million people saying, we don't want what we need, we want what we want. You suck as a leader. Can you talk to God and tell him to give us some dead animals? If we keep going, they also said, we remember the fish we used to eat for free in Egypt. This is one of those that's just a mind-boggling statement. These are the people who were held in captivity. They were slaves. They were abused. Their women and their children were sexually abused. Their men were beaten and taken advantage of in every way. They barely existed and barely lived. They were given nothing but pain in life. It's why Moses ended up in a faraway place. He saw the abuse of one of the slaves and stood up for him and killed somebody and ended up running to the desert. It is literally the worst existence you can imagine. And all of a sudden, now that they're out of it and they're free from it, they say, we remember the fish we used to eat for free. Eat for free? Yeah, all you had to pay for that was your freedom. All you had to pay for that was your slavery. All you had to pay for that was working 18 hours a day and your women and your children being abused. That's all. You ate for free? What a ridiculous statement. And we had then this list that I don't know, this whole passage is just bonkers to me. And we had all the cucumbers, melons, leeks, and onions and garlic that we wanted. And I'm just going to tell you, some of you are like, well, that sounds delicious. To say we had all the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic we wanted, that is a very small amount of want for me. I can pass up that whole list in a second, but now our appetites are gone, which is ridiculous. Their appetites aren't gone, their appetites are raging, and all we have is manna. You know what they did? They whined. They went into full-blown, but wait, I know I'm glad I'm not getting beat up anymore. I'm glad that they didn't kill my brother anymore. I'm glad they're not molesting our women and children anymore. But I sure wish I had some fish. I sure wish, this is no fun. I don't like this. Somebody turn on the air conditioner. I'm ready to stop. Are we there yet? A lot of that. That was some of the stress that Moses is feeling. Moses heard all the families standing in the doorways of their tents, whining. I love the fact that the word whining is in Scripture. He heard them. He hears God saying, I am providing, and he hears people going, no, he's not. Come on, seriously, you're the leader. Do something. Do something. Bring us more. I want tastier food. I don't want this food. It says, and the Lord became extremely angry, and Moses was also very aggravated. You talk about stress. Can you imagine living through that? Moses is like, I didn't ask for this job, and now it's even worse than I thought. I have no control over the outcomes. If you're God, you have to look at it and say, I've set you free miraculously, without any of you having to give your lives. I've given you a way out. I've parted an ocean for you to walk through. I am God, and I have done that for you, and now you're whining. Just so you know, this passage from the day they left is about 13 months later. 1 year and 1 month, best we can figure, later. So they've traveled. It's been a while. To their credit, they know they're headed somewhere. They're just not sure where it is, and they don't know when they're ever going to get there. Many of them, when they left, maybe they assumed this was going to take 2 weeks, and now it's 13 months, and they're tired, and their kids are crying, and it's hot, and they don't have any permanent anything, and they're hurting, and they're struggling. It drives me crazy that they're whining, but you know what? I would be too. All of them are dealing with massive stress. Now, Moses has been fighting this battle not for days, not for weeks, not for months, but from the time this all started talking to Pharaoh, he has now got a long period of time he's been dealing with stress, and it is starting to wear on him. If you kept reading, the next verse is God was aggravated, and he took it out on some of the people. He sent fire down, and some people's lives were lost, and he dealt with it. If we keep going in the story, though, Moses goes to the Lord and he says, why are you treating your servant so harshly? This is Moses to God. He's like, sir, why? Why are you allowing them to whine and yell at me? I didn't do this. I didn't start this. It's not my fault. Have mercy on me. What did I do to deserve the burden of all these people? He's just saying, I'm stressed. The bumper sticker, I'm too blessed to be stressed. He said, I'm too stressed to be blessed. I'm exhausted. Everybody's ticked off at me, and I feel like no matter what I do, you're going to be ticked off at me. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't ask this. What did I do to deserve it? Did I give birth to them? I got all these whiny people expecting something from me. They're not my kids. I didn't do anything to get there. Did I bring them into the world? Why did you tell me to carry them in my arms like a mother carries a nursing baby? Which, by the way, did God ever tell Moses he was responsible for all of them? No. He told him to obey and that he would provide. Now Moses, this is where that emotional stability is lost a little bit. All of a sudden he sees it and says, you expect me to provide everything for them? I can't do it. Why me? All of these, why, what, did I, why, how can I? All of it is about me. Somewhere he's lost his reality that God is big enough to set you free, and if he's big enough to set you free, he's big enough to keep you alive. His stress has moved into burnout, and his burnout is going through those stages rapidly, and you can hear it in his voice. How can I carry them to the land you swore to give their ancestors? How can I pull this off? It is what burnout looks like. It starts with all of these weeds that come into our garden, and they begin to squeeze the life out. And as it squeezes the life out, we lose our ability to balance our thoughts and balance our emotions and balance the way we live. And little by little, you reach a point where you say, I'm not sure it's worth it, and I'm not sure and I becomes everything, and God becomes smaller. And in the end, it becomes so dangerous. Matter of fact, He says this, where am I supposed to get meat for all of these whining people? They keep whining to me saying, give us meat to eat. See if this statement weighs true for anybody else. I can't carry all these people by myself. The load's just too heavy. If you're watching this today, maybe this situation doesn't sound like yours, but this reality sounds just like yours. It's like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. The load is too heavy. I am overwhelmed. I don't know why, God, you put me in this position, but I don't think I can do this much longer. That is burnout. That is stress that has moved. It has advanced. And it's not occupying us, it's now controlling us to the point you reach a spot where you just say, I don't think I can do this anymore. God responded. God heard Abraham's cry. He didn't like everything that was said. He didn't like the fact that people were whining. He didn't do everything. He didn't just hug him. He didn't just hug them. But he did do some things. Let me just mention this one especially. He said, if this is how you intend to treat me, speaking to God, just go ahead and kill me. And do me a favor and spare me this misery. This is where Moses finishes up. Now he's isolated, he's shut down, he's removed himself, and he reaches the point where emotionally he just says, if this is life, I don't want to play anymore. You ever felt that way? You know some people in your life who have felt that way? People you love that you watch spiraling. You watch the weeds just squeezing out the life. Moses heard and was aggravated. If you keep moving forward, the Lord said to Moses, this is the interesting part. I love this phrase. He says, has my arm lost its power? When Moses is spiraling down where God starts, is not to say, nah, it's not hard. Suck it up, buttercup. Be a man. He didn't say that. He just said, Moses, you've lost sight of the most important thing to keep in your sights. Has my arm lost its power? The same God that could part the sea and change a Pharaoh's heart to let you go, the same God that's provided 13 months of food for 1.5 million people every day, the same God who has protected you, the same God who put you here, the same God who made you. Do you think my arm has lost its power? Do you think I've grown weak? Do you think I've forgotten? To which Moses would go, no, but that would be my answer. I would say, no, I don't think that, but, and then I would have another list. But why don't you? Couldn't you? Wouldn't you? No, but. No, but is usually the answer when you feel overwhelmed. Yeah, I get it. That all sounds good up here, but down here, I am a wreck. Now, will you see whether or not my word comes true? And then God acted. Matter of fact, God told Moses, he said, they want meat, I'm going to give them meat. I'm not going to give them a little meat. I'm not going to give them a day's worth of meat. I'm not going to give them a week's worth of meat. For the next month, I'm going to provide more meat than they can eat. They're going to be puking out meat. It's going to be coming from their nose and ears. I'm going to give them more meat than they know what to do with, and they won't deal well with it because they're overwhelmed, and they will do the wrong things. But I'm going to provide. I'm going to show you what I can do. And he did. He sent quail to them. And it says the quail flew just off the ground. And they had so much, they harvested it by the bushel baskets. And they had so much over the next month that they ate so much they became sick and gorged with it. They ate and they ate. They got the meat sweats is what they got. It's like going to the all-you-can-eat Brazilian steak place. They ate and ate to get your money's worth. You just got to keep eating, and they did. They ate to the point they didn't want any more. God said, I'll give you what you ask for, but be careful what you ask for, because sometimes what you ask for will be what destroys you, and it did for them. And their inability to trust God, the result of their burnout is for some of them, they never saw the land that was promised. They didn't live past this part of their life. For some of them, their lack of trust in God affected everything in their outcome. For Moses, has my arm lost its power became evident to him. Matter of fact, God said, you're doing this all alone and you feel it's all on you, so I'm going to get some other people around you, support you. I'm going to build some other leaders in your world. If you feel this weight is too heavy, then I will supply others. And then I'll supply the food. It won't stop people from whining, because in the long run, people are going to whine. When it comes to stress, we can't get rid of stress. It's going to be around us. We can manage it. We can deal with it. It's going to happen. I do want us to recognize when stress is starting to move into burnout, when stress is not unattended but not unmanaged. We attend it with it every day. We just try to survive. But when it is getting bigger than us, when it is choking out our livelihood, it's choking out our life, it's choking out our joy, it's choking out our satisfaction, it's choking out our ability to wake up and be forward-looking instead of backward-looking. When it reaches that point, we have to recognize it, and when that happens, we got to catch it early. If you want to avoid it, or for some of us who are in the middle of the throes of burnout right now, we've got to catch it early. We can't wait and go, man, I'm so far gone now, I'm not even sure I can find my way back to the light. Catch it early. It's why we gave all of those things this morning to say, is this you, is this you, is this you? The earlier you catch it, the earlier you recognize it, the quicker you can take action. And some of the actions would look like this. You need to find some places for personal refueling and then provide the opportunity to use them. Can I just say this? Some people feel like, I get this statement probably once every few months from somebody who's anti-church. And I get it, man. Hey, if you don't have some skepticism about church in today's world, you've lost your marbles. There's all kinds of reasons to be skeptical about organized, or in our case, slightly disorganized religion. You'd be crazy not to have a little bit of skepticism about it. But can I say, for some people, their attitude is, well, I don't have to go to church to go to heaven. I don't have to go to church to love God. And you don't. There's truth in that. Church is not a necessity for you to go to heaven. Here's what I found. People who are going to heaven, who are building their faith, usually find church a very helpful thing, even though church is far from perfect. People whose focus is building an eternity with God go to church. I can't find a good one. I can't either, and I lead one. I'm part of leadership in one. I can't find one that meets all my needs. Me either, and I get paid by one. There's not one. Well, there's so many screwed up people. There's so many hypocrites, the guys that lead them. I agree with all of your statements and still find that God knew what he was talking about when he said, I need you to come together. Because there's more value than there is hurt. I've dealt with a lot of hurt, but I'm just going to say, if you've been through a bad experience, find a healthier spot. You won't find a perfect spot. I'll just say this. I've had some bad experiences. I ate food once and got so sick, my vomit went all the way across a room and hit the far wall. I was that sick. But you know what I decided to do? Eat again, eventually. I didn't eat that food for a long time. But you know what I didn't do is say, I got bad food, so I'm never going to eat again. And for some people, you've had bad experiences in church. You've had bad experiences in looking for places that refuel your soul. And because of it, you just said, I give up. And can I just say, you don't do it in other things. I bought a car once that just stunk. Bought it brand new. It started getting bad by 10,000 miles. It was a lemon. You know what I decided to do? I was never going to drive again. Matter of fact, to get here on this stage today, I walked for 3.5 hours. No, I didn't do that. You know what I did? I pushed that car aside, licked my wounds, and tried to get a better one next time. And if you've had bad experiences, I would never diminish those. But listen, you can't give away what's good because you bumped into something that was bad. Maybe the way you refuel is church. And can I just say this one more thing to you? Church is not just showing up. It's crazy that you can walk in a building like the one that I'm in now. You can watch online like you're watching right now. And there'll be people who see this and it'll help them. They'll say, that was exactly what I needed. That helped me so much. And others who you barely stayed awake. There'll be people who go to church and leave completely the same week after week, and people sitting 2 feet from them whose lives are being rebuilt. It has to do with you. It's not just the people. Just assume the people who are up here are doing the best, but are far from everything you need. Just assume that it's never going to completely fit you. But when you walk in with an attitude of, I believe God will communicate with me today. I believe that I will leave better than when I showed up today. I'll believe that when I get through watching this, I'm going to choose to take in. I'm going to choose to let it land in me and take root in me and help me change. You will find that will happen. God is capable of using very unfit vessels like Moses, like me, like whoever stands in front of these cameras. He can use even people like that to help you. Not because we're worthy, because we're talking about Him. Find things that refuel. Find things that refuel you physically. You go, I wish I had 1 minute in my life. And can I just say this? I know this is tough. I'm not saying, oh yeah, this is easy. For me, it's hard sometimes to find things that refuel me and give it the time and focus in my life to let it happen. But I'm just saying the other alternative is burnout. And the other alternative is worse than the alternative of trying to find a way. Find places for personal refueling. Prioritize the important over the urgent. The problem is the urgent screams all the time. The urgent constantly says, now, right now. Everybody you talk to, if you work in a business, everybody that calls says, I need this now. Why couldn't you do it now? Why can't you do it yesterday? Hurry up, move. If you've got kids, they all want what they want now. If you've got a spouse, they all want what they want now. If you've got life, when you drive down the road, it's either hurry up or slow down. Either way, get out of my way. I've got a life. You're impeding my progress. We have to learn the difference in what's important and what's urgent, and sometimes they get so reversed. If I don't do this right now, the whole world's going to come to an end. And the truth is, when I focus on what's important, it helps me deal with the urgent. And sometimes, you know what needs to be done with the urgent? It needs to be pushed aside so I can focus on what's important. Sometimes I've got to recognize the world won't end if I don't. Is my arm weak? Is God not able to see me through that? And sometimes we build these things in our lives. If my kids aren't involved in all 43 of those things, they won't have full lives. Can I just say, man, that's a lie. I'm not saying involvement in things is not a good thing. I'm just saying sometimes we believe if we don't get to the next bigger thing, the next step in life, then I'm not caring for my family well. That is just a lie. Caring for your family is doing the important things well. And everything else finds its way. It's prioritizing the importance over the urgent. Don't avoid starting. This is probably the one I would emphasize the most. Don't avoid starting better things just because you can't do everything. It's the person who says, I need to get more exercise in my life and I don't have time, so I'm not going to do anything. It's the person who says, my debt is so big and there's no way I can catch up, so I'm just going to keep spending. Don't avoid starting because you can't do it all. All is something you'll get to someday, but starting is more important. Taking the first step, doing the next right thing is where health comes from. It's when we start, I can't ever pull all these weeds, then pull the first weeds. Allow a little bit of life back in. I can't ever give all the time in to refuel, then start doing something. If it's 10 minutes, if it's an hour, if it's once a week, if it's once a month, do something. Take a next step. Don't say I can't, so I won't. Say I will find where I can start, and even if it's a baby step, I'm going to start there. And then never walk alone. Find somebody. Typically, our struggle is when we're in burnout mode, when we're in overwhelm, when we're in overstressed mode. We find somebody just like us and hope they can help us. One of the most dangerous things in life is sometimes when you're going through bad relational stuff in your marriage, misery loves company. We tend to find two more people who are in horrible relational things, and that's who we call, that's who we talk to. We end up in a world of saying to somebody who's in a bad relationship, let me tell you about my relationship. And they say, yeah, men are all stupid, men are all idiots, women are all, and they fill in the blank. Can I just say this? When we say never walk alone, find somebody who is dealing with the issue of life you're dealing with in a healthy way. If you're dealing with finances, don't go talk to somebody who's right on the verge of bankruptcy or somebody who can't pay their bills. Find somebody ahead of you in that category and have enough humility to recognize there's people who are ahead of you in that part of life. It may not mean all of life is that way. If you're trying to get more fit, Talk to somebody who's ahead of you in their fitness. If you're trying to deal with spiritual things, talk to somebody who seems to be focused on that and gaining some traction. What you don't need is the I hate men, or I hate women, or I hate America, or I hate government, or don't dwell in negativity. Don't jump from the frying pan into the fire, but don't walk alone. There are people. So I wish I could find that. Then wake up every day and start your day saying, God, if you'll bring somebody across my path to walk through this with me, I'll be looking. Pray for it every day. Look every day. Let us know around here. We'll pray with you for that. We may have options around that. Let people know who care so they can pray with and help you with that. Just don't walk alone, because nobody was intended to walk alone. And then I'll just throw this one in to finish it. Don't forget that you're not forgotten, that God still cares. That God didn't, like Moses, but now me, it's me. I got to carry them. I've got to feed them. I've got to stop their whining. I've got to please them. And I got to please you. And I can't please anybody, and I'm not pleased with myself. And God said to him that I'm still with you. I'm going to help bring some more leaders. I'm going to help provide some food, but you're not alone. I hear you, and you are not forgotten. Don't forget when you're going through burnout that you're not in this all by yourself. And if it were God speaking to you, I think he'd probably say it this way: do you think my arm is weak? I brought this whole world into existence, and that includes you, and I've not forgotten, and I'm still able. However big and overwhelming your stuff is, I am bigger, and I can still overwhelm it. I am still able, and I am still capable, and I'm going to start dealing with my stress and my burnout with opening my hands and saying, God, I can't, but you can. I choose to follow you. And maybe that's where you need to go today. This isn't a heaven and hell. Hey, God, I'll follow you. I don't want to go to hell. It is, I feel like I'm living in hell and I don't know what else to do. And I've tried to fix it all my way. God, I open my hands to you and surrender what I have. But I choose to trust you. I choose to make your ways my ways. And I lean heavy on the side that you have not forgotten me. And it gives me a little breath. It pulls a little bit of the weeds back in my garden and allows a little bit of growth. Do the next right thing. Stress, unkept, leads to burnout, and burnout leads to our lives being destroyed. God never wanted it that way, and he will help you walk through that. So God, help us live alive. For those who feel overwhelmed by all of that, I don't diminish it, and there are no quick fixes. But I do know this, that I can't fix it all today, but I can take one step forward. Would you help provide for people the hope and one next step today? If it's finding someone, if it's just beginning to step up in my own understanding of what's important and what's urgent, or any of those things, help us not give up. Help us not grow weary in well-doing. We ask it in your name. Amen. Hey, thanks for watching.